Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Ball Watching. Back in the saddle today, Justin. It's December. It felt like it's been a while since we recorded, but promise you all we've been hard at work just on some different things, and we're gonna peel back the curtain, Justin. What we've been really working on the last couple of weeks. We're not just talking that we're working; we actually are. Justin, we wanted to talk a little bit about hope for the holidays today, as well as get into a lot of other city content. Promise you, will be forthcoming here, but hope for the holidays is our baby collectively. I mean, this is something that we did last year for the first time. It is a fundraiser charitable event for the Head Neck Cancer Tumor Center at Siteman Cancer Center, soon to be renamed. We'll talk about that here. But obviously, it's a cause that I'm sure you all can get behind, head neck, because it's something that I know, Justin, you and I both have brushes with within our family and friends specifically as well. So it's a specific cause we feel very passionate about, and we want to do something about it. And that's, raising money to support research, treatment, anything to help drive further awareness and better outcomes for these types of patients in the future, Justin. But that's Hope for the Holidays in a nutshell. There's a lot of fun behind it too, Justin. So why don't you walk us into what this event really kind of looks like?
Yeah, so for anybody that can see visually on YouTube, but if not, we'll talk us through for everybody. This will be Wednesday, December 11th from 6 to 9 p.m. The reason we have to do it on Wednesday is because of our special guests, who we'll touch on here in a bit as well. $100 per ticket. What you're going to get in that ticket is all-inclusive, top shelf bar, food as well, exclusive raffle prizes. We already have a couple things up on a silent auction, which I'll share here as well, but raffles at the event. A presentation from Dr. Sid Purum, the chief of the Head and Neck Surgery Center. And then also we're going to do a roundtable with our special guests, who I will drop the names now as well, Jake. We will be having, we are very lucky to be having Mr. Celio Pompeo. Hold on. Mr. Celio Pompeo from City. I don't know why it's not going, Jake. But him with Kelly Chase, former Blues player, and Chris Zimmerman, the president and CEO of the St. Louis Blues.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a Lollapalooza lineup, man. We got some serious diversity in types of roles that we have to talk about, and interview questions that we want to ask, and I'm sure you all are curious about. But yeah, we'll do, I think, Justin, we're thinking kind of two separate interviews there, where we do like a blues oriented interview. And both, by the way, Kelly Chase obviously is going through treatment right now for leukemia, so he has quite a story himself and can relate to what we're doing here. And then Chris Zimmerman has also had some history of cancer in his family as well, which we'll kind of dive into during that. So wow, that's going to be a really fun conversation. And I mean, what else could you ask for Celio? I mean, the guy is, we've I feel like used so many different synonyms to describe his playing style and the energy that he brings to City. So I'm really excited to kind of peel back the layers on Celio, because the guy's a special talent that was cut short this past season. So we'll get to the bottom of a lot of all that. But we got a cool roundtable, a cool outlook on guests this year, and you can only see them at the event. We will try to see if we can get that audio recorded and put out to you all as a podcast as well, but even more incentive to get there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody's seen the videos, even with Celio just being back in the training ground. Everything has been centered around him with the videos, because his personality is infectious. I would put that along with Indy as well, but I'm excited to have him as an interview for us. And then lastly, Jake, the one thing I wanted to touch on, and I already kind of mentioned, was we're also going to have a silent auction while we're working on this. So some of the key things you're going to be seeing in the silent auction are kind of once in a lifetime situations that you're going to be having with this. So the first one, I think, that, and the biggest one, Jake, as I get this pulled up and you have a little bit more details on it, is the Justin Timberlake experience.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't like Justin Timberlake? He is, like a Renaissance man, just a modern Renaissance man. The guy can do it all. And this is to go see Justin Timberlake in Kansas City, not St. Louis, but in Kansas City. We're paying for the hotel room. Don't you worry. It's on a Friday night. I believe the St. Louis show is the night before, on the 19th. But in KC on the 20th, it's going to be Justin Timberlake's Forget Tomorrow World Tour stop. But it's not just that. It's 4 tickets. You're sitting in the friends and family section. That's how close we've gotten you here. And you're going to have access to a green room with food and drink. You're basically going to be as close to Justin Timberlake as you ever will be. And who knows what could happen. Wink, wink. We also have a wine sampling experience. You get 12 friends together, whatever you want, and you get an in-home consultant that brings 8 bottles of wine for you all. I mean, come on, act like you know what you're drinking or thinking. This is a person that's going to help you do that. We got Blues gear, ticket basket. We've got a city basket. And Justin, you've worked your tail off on assembling some of the coolest and most local beverages and restaurants that we have in St. Louis.
Yeah, so just for example, I'm sharing my screen on, if you wanted to click into these, so you could see that all 4 of the 5 of them already have a bid on it. And no, it's not Jake and I. These are people in the community that are looking forward to this because Cyber Monday deal, Jake, I mean, this local food and drink basket is retail at $600. And the reason for that is 4 hands. They give us flights for 4 and 4 packs to go. That's $150 value, plus another 12 citywides and 12 citywide lights. Niche food group, $50 gift card. And then you also get a sparkling bottle of wine, a wine opener, Pastaria hat, Midwestern, 2 very nice bottles of whiskey. Schlafly gave us a t-shirt, a hat, a mug, a bottle opener, 2 6-packs of some of their special beers. Milo's is hopping in from the hill. You get 2 $25 gift cards there. And then Good News Brewing, another local brewery, gave us 2 free beers and a free pizza and a growler. So that adds up to $600. The price right now that it was bid at is $250. All of these items, Jake, when I was thinking about this, I was like, this is the biggest Cyber Monday deal you can do. They're all essentially 66% off. So when we talk about that, I mean, you look at these other ones, like you can't really put a dollar value on the JT item, but I can promise you that the hotel alone is worth more than half of the $500 starting bid, plus 4 tickets that are all inclusive with some food and drink, the city basket, plus the Series 6 basket, the Blues signed jersey by Colton Parayko, signed puck by Colton Parayko, and 2 tickets to an upcoming game that are in the lower bowl as well. And like you said, Jake, the wine. I'd say after Thanksgiving, I could use probably 8 bottles of wine just with me and a couple of my closest friends. And if you have a sommelier coming to your house as well, and you're just sitting at home with a fire, someone teaching you about the wine, all of these are at a very low price, more than 66% off.
It is. I had never thought that we would be creating our own site for Cyber Monday and giving some of the best and hottest deals in town. But for you all that are going, great. You can participate there too. We're not going to close this until we're at the event. But we do have it open. Like Justin said, right now, we are receiving bids. So if you want to get on the action, if you're looking for some Christmas shopping and some good deal hunting, this is a great place to be. And I want to make one final plug, Justin. Like we said, this is our baby. We care a lot about this. We have a goal this year for $50,000 to raise for Head and Neck Tumor Center at Siteman. And we can't get there without you all. So if you can go, please buy tickets. We have the link peppered all over our social media, or reach out to us if you can't find it somehow. We want to get you in the doors. And if you can't go, we do this podcast, all year round. And if you want to support us in any way, shape, or form, we always ask for ratings and reviews. I would kill all of that if you all just made a donation on our behalf to the foundation. We have a direct link there as well. If you want to show us that you like what we do and you appreciate us as podcasters, content creators, this would mean the world to us to give back in this way. So if you have any questions, you shouldn't, because we have so many things on social media and links to go all these different places, but please ask us how you can contribute. And we'd love to have you all. We love this community, and we know that we can reach that goal with your all support.
Yeah, we already have 120 tickets sold. I think we're capping out at around 175 or so. So we're well on our way with 2 weeks left, or sorry, just a week and a half left. It's saying how quickly it's going best. But the one last thing I'm going to say about all of it, Jake, too, is that so there's no confusion. All proceeds are going to the Head and Neck Cancer Foundation. So Jake and I are not only just proceeds, but we are putting in a good chunk of our own money for creating videos and bringing special guests and bringing in all these different things. So could not be more thankful for the people in the community. Shout out to The Pitch. Shout out to Splice House, our two of our biggest donors is giving into this. We're going to have some companies that are sponsoring us as well, but along with the Blues, the JT, the Series 6, the City, the local food, the in-home, those two, The Pitch, which is where the event is at, and Splice House, who's helping us with creating of the video of this, are just could not be more thankful for what they've done for us.
Agreed, Justin. Well, that's where we spent a lot of our time recently, but trust me, we all have been keeping an eye on the news that's happened for City, including a coaching hire, a full-time coaching hire, and a new player, which we'll get to, Justin. But what do we preach in this show? We preach honesty, being transparent about things like our bets and what we feel and our takes. Justin, I pulled out our preview of the 2024 season, and I pulled out some of the things we were expecting or questions we wanted to highlight, and especially our predictions, like / superlatives as well. And God, these were funny in some places. But let's kick it off, Justin, which our review on our preview for 2024. And I'm looking at some of these questions, Justin, that we posed at the very beginning, and I'm still wondering about some of these, and I don't think they've been fully answered yet. But a couple of things that came up right away in our preview for 2024 was, is the sophomore slump for real? I think that's an affirmative.
Check the box there, Jake. I think we can move straight on to the next one.
We asked the question, will XG outperformance catch up with us? We're going to also check that box pretty significantly. Are teams going to preemptively adapt to our style of play, or can they? I think so, for the most part, in what we've seen at least. And then really, have we done a lot of good business, or has it just been shrewd? I think that some of the Cats, I don't know. I think some of that's up for debate at this point. We've done, I think, even a little more shrewd business that we'll talk about here later. But individually, Justin, we had some big questions. Is Berkey for real? I mean, do I even have to say the answer to that?
No, Berkey is for real. The one thing I do want to say, Jake, just quickly on, have other teams adapted to us, or can they even? The answer is absolutely yes. And that's one of the main reasons why Carnell got shown the door. However, it seems like we've been switching our playing style and our kind of form of attack in the way we're playing. So we're almost adapting in that as well. And good business, we'll talk about the different guys that we've been signing and who we're going to be looking for and keeping the expansion draft. But yes, Berkey is absolutely for real. This is the guy that, when we're talking about the expansion draft, every person's number one that we need to keep and protect is Mr. Roman Berkey.
Yep, absolutely. And the final other questions we asked ourselves was, did we really upgrade our back line? Because remember, this is written before the start of the season. So we had Totland and Dewyer came in. And I guess you can say 50-50 on that. Obviously, Totland, I think, is one of the most underappreciated, maybe most underrated, right backs in the league. And I think he will remain to be that. And maybe he'll get to some sort of parity at some point where, the hype is all the same talent. But I think we definitely had a net overall upgrade. We obviously lost Parker, shed him, but picked up Kessler as well, and then got Horn later on in the season. So I think overall, you'd probably say we upgraded. It hurt to lose Nilsson for sure. And we've made some more changes at center back, which we'll talk about. Talent enough in the central midfield. Blum, we parted ways with, obviously, on loan. Leuven, Durkin held their own. I mean, I think Durkin, if anyone, really outperformed his expectations heading into the season. So I think we had enough talent, maybe not enough depth in midfield, and we obviously brought in some more talent with some of the mid-season acquisitions for guys like Hartel. Goal output was a struggle. We asked who's really going to chip in with goals this year. We thought maybe maybe Indy, maybe AZ. I mean, did the three of those players score 5 goals total? I don't think so in this season. We can verify that, but it's probably not even at 5. And we saw goals were a constant issue or thorn on our side throughout the season, which we'll get to in our Golden Boot. But let's talk players, Justin. We handed out Golden Ball, Golden Boot, Golden Glove, Breakout Player, Filthiest Player, and the Rock Award, or just, our best defender. Any of these, Justin, stick out to you with our guesses underlined by who we think probably actually won these really stick out? I mean, start with the Golden Ball. What do you think?
Yeah, I would say Golden Ball. We had Leuven, Berkey, and Klaus as our projections there. And then you have actual here, and I would agree with you, is Durkin and Totland. I would say more probably Durkin so than Totland, just because of the lack of time that we saw him going on throughout the year. The one that stuck out for me, though, Jake, just real quick, was Breakout Player, just because we had AZ, Dewyer, Thor, and Ostrak as our options. And I mean, obviously, there's a ton of different guys that you can go with here, but I would agree with you here is I think the absolute breakout player was Simon Betcher. I think he came in and was an absolute spark plug. If you look at it, he played 550 minutes and he had 4 goals in that time period. So the man was literally averaging almost a goal every 90 when we were playing with him. So I think he was our true breakout player just in the small stint that he had.
Golden Boot was a funny one for me too, because we put Klaus and Alm there. I think Klaus is probably the ideal, or at least the most obvious choice heading into this season. This season being 2024, not now in 2025. Maybe still in 2025. We can see there. But Toyshirt came away with that one with 7 goals in all competitions, despite joining in the latter third of the season. I think in the MLS we had 3 guys level on 5. I think it was Klaus, Toyshirt, and Leuven. I think all had 5. So, I mean, if you're going to have your top goal scorer have 5, it's just, you're not in for much unless you have 6-7 guys with 5, honestly. So that was a big disappointment this year. Obviously, Golden Glove, got to go to the man, Berkey. But what do you have for us, Justin?
Well, I was just going to say on that point, we were the only team in the MLS not to have at least a goal scorer of actually 7 that end of the season. So we had multiple guys. You were right. We had Joao, Leuven, and Toyshirt, all with 5. Toyshirt doing 5 and 762 minutes, but he tied Leuven and Joao, who did it in just about 1,900 minutes on average. So I think he was a massive spark plug for us. And then another guy we talked about, Hartel, coming in, just had 9 90s that he played and still had 3 goals and 7 assists. That is a goal contribution of once every 81 minutes in the last 9 games for us. And that's really when you saw the wheels turning, right? Once we got rid of our coach, Carnell, and then obviously when we brought in the reinforcements, I would say that Hartel was really one of the most impressive ones for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'd be the filthiest player in hindsight. We had thought it might be Ostrak, Indy, Celio. I think Celio still might have a case for it. I mean, obviously he was cut way short with his injury. And Ostrak even had a really great stretch in the season until he got his injury as well. So it's a really big question mark next to those guys' names as to what they'll bring in 2025, because they were doing ultimately, I think, pretty well in 2024 prior to being set back there. But the Rock Award I thought was interesting in terms of our defender. We had Parker and Blum on here, neither of whom, they probably looked more like rocks on the field than what we actually meant by the award. But Justin, I would struggle to give it to anyone on our back line that isn't named Henry Kessler. But if you want to extend to kind of like, maybe the whole 5 with the central defensive midfielder included as well. I mean, Durkin was a rock. That dude was a tenacious defender and even a center back at times for us.
That's why I would go with Durkin on this, just looking at it, and because they're right next to each other on the stat sheet. But just when you filter by goals, because they each had 1, which is also great for both of them. Obviously, Kessler getting 1 when we were back up in the Revs, but Kessler only played 8 games, 675 minutes for us. But when you look at Durkin, 28 games, 26 starts, 2,261 minutes. I mean, that guy was an absolute workhorse. And not only was he dominating, but doing so with having the 3rd highest most minutes on the team. Only Berkey and Totlin had more minutes than him. And I feel like every time we walked away from a game, Durkin was always the guy that was like sitting in and being able to just cut out counterattacks. And not only just winning tackles, crushing tackles, and then getting it off his foot. There was not a lot of times where you'd see it, where he'd have it, and then he'd try to go dribble after he made a big tackle. He knew what his job was. It was to cut out any counterattacks or any attacking prowess from the opposition and then get it back out to the wingers or the forwards. So in my opinion, the rock was Durkin.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about our team predictions side. So we kind of did some analysis on what we thought this team might need to get into the playoffs this year based on numbers from prior years. And so at the top of the season for us, we said you'd need about 43 or 44 points to qualify for the wild card. So just to book your ticket to get into the playoffs, about 46 to 49 to get into round 1. And then remember, there's 34 games in a season, 3 points for a dub, 1 point for a draw, 0 for a loss. Wins specifically, we said we probably need around greater to or equal to 10, most likely, since no team under that got into the playoffs in 2023. That remained true in 2024. So we were right on the spot for that one. Losses, we said you need less than or equal to 14, most likely, since no team with more than that got into the playoffs in 2023. Obviously, you want to limit those anyway, but it remained kind of true this year, where 2 teams, Atlanta and Colorado specifically, got into the playoffs with 14 losses, but there was no team that had more than that. And they obviously had a lot more wins and then draws in that column. And draws, I mean, who really cares? We had the second most, actually. People probably think we had the first most given our stretch run, but New York Red Bulls, who are in the MLS Cup, had the most draws this season at 14.
That was just, once you put that in here, I was like, are you sure? I had to double check because I had not heard about that. But I mean, the fact that they're making this run and this push right now is impressive alone. But having that's something that you'll see, that'll be a rarity. Only 11 wins, but then they only had 9 losses, which means they had 14 draws. And that's why they were able to get their 47 points. And they weren't even in just the wild card. They were in the 7th spot. So they were automatically in that first round with 14 draws, which is just impressive. And I still agree that when we're looking at doing a preview for next season, you cannot have only 11 wins and safely make the playoffs.
God, no. The lines, Justin, were intriguing to me, in hindsight now, because the West line ended up at 47 as the cut line to get in, which is higher than I think we expected, just by one or two. But the East line was at 40. And I think that's just the disparity or almost like lack of parity somewhat in the East, where there are some, there's a host of really, really solid teams, and there's some teams that are just downright bad as well. Whereas the West, I think you see a lot more parity, where teams can beat other teams on given days. See St. Louis beating the also MLS Cup featurettes, LA Galaxy at home, not too late on, not too far on far away from now, man. I still remember where you were. I mean, it was so fun watching us take on the Galaxy and really take them on as well. So we'll see how that MLS Cup ends up panning out. But that line will be interesting to keep an eye on, because 7 points differentiating who gets in the West versus who gets in the East that's quite a big line. I mean, 7 points is a big difference in those two numbers.
And not only that, so we're just to make sure everybody's clear, that's just to get into the wild card. We had to have 47 points. That's a Vancouver and Portland tied at 47 points. Well, if you're looking at the wild card in the East, it was 43 and 40 points. So that's just a massive swing just on that alone, as opposed to even looking at first round, getting a bye, or essentially a bye past the wild card round. So I will say, again, Jake, I still think going into it, if you look at it next year, and yes, we're going to be including another team, I will say you're going to need, I'm going to stick back to 44 points. I think that's what teams need to get in. And that's ultimately, like, if you're at 44 points, you're fighting either for hopefully a wild card spot, or if you're in the East, you could possibly even be making it into the first round.
Agreed. So, Justin, how did we do on our predictions for the season in terms of our records? I had to pull back that one as well. I predicted us to go 13 wins, 14 losses, and 7 draws. So obviously I was way off on the draws, but I was kind of in the realm on the losses, with the team having 13 losses, not 14 as I projected. And I had us, ending up with 46 points on the border of wild card in round 1. So I think I expected a regression, a little bit of a sophomore slump, but not as much of a regression as we saw.
Yeah. With me, I predicted, 14 wins, 11 losses, and 9 ties. I mean, we ended up being 8, 13, and 13. So I think my ultimate goal for the team was, I thought with our points, we'd have 51 points and border between home and away in round 1. But actually, then obviously we only finished with 37 points and missed the wild card by 10 total points.
So, Justin, I wanted to get a little bit of thoughts. So you heard all our thoughts and how mostly off we were for this, not for lack of trying. We tried to crunch the numbers and pull our heads together on what really could happen in this upcoming season. But, a lot of people probably couldn't predict what was going to happen to this team. But I was really curious to listen to Lutz's City Voice interview on, what his take on everything was. And I was a little bit distracted by how unwilling he was to admit to any blame being put on our playing style kind of being found out. He blamed injuries, lengthy absences from our top players, the Leuven situation, of course, with his family health, our backline inconsistency and how many different back fours we had to play, a coaching change, which a lot of those things I think did contribute. But I think a lot of the time for us, we weren't putting on good performances either. There wasn't good chemistry. There wasn't good continuity within the team. I know part of that's due to injury, but we weren't able to trouble teams a lot. And that doesn't always add up to all the things that he just said, but he had some good little tidbits in here that I think he alluded to that were at least in his mind, determinants or factors as to why we didn't perform. The other one I wanted to call out, Justin, was confidence. He said confidence a couple times, and he said confidence is one of those things is one of the first things to go when you have some of those things that I just talked about. And fixing or correcting confidence, via Hackworth was one of the biggest, he attributed our success factors to, was being able to turn that ship around. You and I felt it, right? It felt off. The guys didn't look good out there. They didn't look, like they believed in themselves. And then all of a sudden you saw a shift. And I think that came with Hackworth. But, I would encourage you all to go take a look back at it, because there were some interesting little things he had to say in this.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And I think the biggest one for me, Jake, is, and I agree, is at least talking from the confidence point, is the shift that we saw once Carnell left and once we had Hack. I mean, we just lost the locker room vibes, and which I do think you can't just really pin it all on the coach. We've talked about all of this, but the vibes need to be there in the locker room, because they're not in the locker room. It's going to show on the field as well. And so I think when we were kind of shifting out some guys, when you look at like AZ and Sam, and people really liked them around the locker room, and then it was like, all right, well, am I going to be the next guy out? You didn't see as much glowingness out of Indy in some of these videos. And I feel like the guys were just kind of down, and it was more like, all right, show up, train, go home, as opposed to what they used to talk about and what Kyle told us about and what Leuven talked about the guys playing games together, guys golfing together. And I feel like we lost that this summer. However, I think even it was more impressively when Hack came in, not only did we change the locker room with four new guys, but also we shifted that entire mindset into where everybody was back up again, which is not easy to do just by adding in new guys. Usually it does not flip that quickly, but it is something to be hopeful for looking forward.
Agreed. Something else we're looking forward to, Justin, not in a very positive way, but in a sort of anxious way, is what's going to happen in this expansion draft. So the expansion draft is coming up for you all. Remember our fun times in it. Just a couple of years ago now. It feels like forever ago. But just a quick reminder on the sort of the overarching rules are that City can protect a maximum of 12 players, and a minimum of 3 must be internationals, DPs, designated players, or any players like a Roman Berkey who are, signed via other financial mechanisms like target allocation money. They're not just automatically protected. You do have to put them on the list to protect them. Loan players are also not automatically protected. So basically, Lutz and Co. have to take a look at this entire roster from loans all the way through our DPs and say, who do we need to put on our list to protect? The only givens are the homegrowns. Those are protected. They are valued. We don't need to list them here. So for our purposes, we don't need to talk about them much here. But, there's been a lot of good content on here. I do want to give a shout out to our friends over at Chat City Tactics. I mean, unbelievable analysis, hundreds of entries. Justin, talk us through, some of what you heard on that. We can kind of take away, or at least piggyback on some of the takeaways.
Yeah, shout out to Mike. So if you guys don't follow him already, go to Twitter, follow at Chat City Tactics, and that's with Mike, a good buddy of mine from back home. And some of the things that I will want to touch on just real quick, Jake, before we get into what he did with everything, was for anybody that doesn't know what this expansion draft is or kind of forgot because it's been 2 years and we were a part of it. 5 rounds. San Diego, who's the new team, is going to be able to select 5 players. Once they select from one player from one team, they cannot select from that team again. There were some nuances with some other rules and the fact that, but every team in the MLS is available for this. So there will be no timeouts, no trade, but San Diego is going to end up picking out 5 guys from different teams. So the cool thing that Mike did was he reached out to the City fans, and obviously we show out for every kind of vote and everything else. He had over 250 submissions on who people thought they should be, that City should end up protecting. And so ultimately it came down to a pretty cool list. And I would say maybe just touch on this real quick, Jake, on some of the stats. 4 people were being protected. 3 of them by 100% is what the fans said. Roman Berkey, Hartel, Toyshirt, and then Leuven at 99.8%. Then we look at 2 other guys that were really high up on the list for the fans specifically were Totland and Kessler. And then you get into some glue, what he calls glue guys, where you're just over 70% or right at 70% of Durkin, Joao, Simon, and Celio. And then Rasmus Alm at 68.9%. And then it came down to one last close one between Nilsson and Jonas Horn. And the fans protected Nilsson at a 48% there. So, Jake, I kind of gave a read through this and then also a read through of what Mike's thoughts were as well. Where do you kind of sit on this and who we should be protecting?
Yeah, I want to make one other quick shout out too. Is Hope for the Holidays is the same day as the expansion draft, so that is happening that night as well. So we won't be tuning into it, but we trust me, we'll be in the aftermath if any players are taken from us. But I think for the most part, the fans have the locks right. With Hartel, Toyshirt, Berkey, Leuven, and I think Totland, Kessler, even for me, fall into that camp as well. But as the article reads, and again, you got to read it. It's incredible. Great content. There's so many things to consider in this. It's not just who your favorite players are. It's things like contract term, transfer value, age. Are they a fit? Are they happy? So there's so many other things to consider here. And I love when he kind of overlays, with the fan list versus what his list would be. And that shows how different some of these thought processes are when you're thinking about who you want to keep here. So I think for the most part, Justin, you and I were even talking before this, there's a good, I'd say about 3/4 of that, should write itself for the most part. It's those final 4, maybe even 5 slots of that 12 that get difficult because I think for a guy, let's talk about Celio, future Hope for the Holidays guest. Can't wait to talk to him. He's a guy where, a lot of people wanted to keep him. It was 60, almost 70% of fans wanted to keep him in terms of protecting him. So sorry, strike the keeping. I'm just saying protecting. Obviously, we want to keep him too. He is something we don't have on the team, and it'd be a shame to lose him. But with Celio, the thought process for me is, do you need to protect him? Because we saw great things in 2024. I'm sure a lot of teams would want to take that and put that on their team. But then he suffered a season-long injury, a very serious injury at that. That makes GMs, that makes sporting directors question, what am I really getting if I do pick him up here? And is that really going to be worth it? It's a lot of things you have to consider when it comes down to it. So I just wanted to pull out one example for it.
Yeah, there's some gamesmanship to this. I mean, when you think about it, it's also like, hey, what if San Diego, I mean, if we want to just protect our best 12, and that's what we're going to have, and that should be our starting lineup. But also, it's like, do you want to leave a guy out there with a little bit of a heavier contract, like a Nilsson, that has not proven to stay healthy? And like, do you think San Diego would take a chance on that? If anybody remembers back when the Blues had this, they did not protect Tarasenko, and it's not because we didn't want to keep Tarasenko. It's just like, hey, if you're going to go pick up this guy's contract, kind of at the end of his years, could have a little bit of health issues. It's kind of a gamble in that sense. And obviously Tarasenko is still killing it in the league, but they ended up, even though we didn't protect him, we still held on to him. So there's a couple things you need to think about with this. Like Jake said, it's not just your favorite player, who you think plays best. It's age, it's contract length, contract size. And so I think there's a couple different factors that you really need to consider. And I think Michael does a great job kind of expanding on that in this article.
No, I would agree. I think it's worth a read for anyone. And we're not going to go obviously overly detailed here into it, but it's something to keep an eye on. I have a feeling that we're not going to have anyone that gets taken, and it ultimately will be all for naught for us. But I could see, with the recent news, we can get this right now, Justin, with the center back signing that we just made and Timo Baumgartel, maybe in the center back side, because we do have 5 now. And you've got to make room, right? I don't think it makes sense to have 5. I think we had 5 or 6 during our inaugural season between like Jonathan Bell and Lucas
Bartlett.
Yes, Bartlett. Yes. And with Timo Baumgartel, he's not a guy that you've gone out, and I'll just say it right now. So he's coming over from Germany. He's played in that same U21 youth national team set up with the Germans, like Leuven and Teuscher and Hartel. It's funny. And Horn, like all these guys have somehow crossed paths before. But he signed, and I don't think he is that last piece of the puzzle signing. I think this is a guy that is a bit of an unknown quantity right now because of a mix of things, but one of those being that he had testicular cancer and had to miss, a good chunk of almost an entire season. And since then, he really hasn't found regular, 1,500, 2,000 minute seasons since 21-22. So you're coming out of that where he also this past season played almost 1,000, but he had a falling out with the coach. And so you're kind of getting a little bit of unknown here, but it's free and he's played at a high level before. And so I think, they're putting their eggs in that basket, at least for the next, he's guaranteed through 26, option for 27. He's going to provide cover. You're going to see him play. Absolutely. Especially if Nilsson continues to be made of glass. So, for a guy like that, does that now free up maybe Yarrow to get picked up in this expansion draft, or a guy like even Kyle Hebert, who, is limited as his, possession stats can be, or his passing can be. Maybe he's an asset just as a defensive, stable center back or left back for a team. So that's the area where I feel like we could maybe see a little bit of flux in.
Yeah, so when you talk about the 5 guys, we have Nilsson and Kessler, if healthy, would be our starters, and then Baumgartel, and then Hebert/Yarrow, who would be behind him. Jake, I'd be absolutely shocked if a team is picking up Yarrow in this expansion draft, because, I know we got him, but it doesn't seem like something that they would use one of their only 5 picks on. But that's one of the things that I wanted to bring up on this. I really love this part of Michael's article, and it's the longest type out, so he felt like he needed to explain it. He would say he would protect Kyle Hebert. And I kind of agree with him when you think about it. He's only 27 years old on a $160,000 contract. So through 2026 and then has an option for 2027, he's getting called up to the Canadian national team. And yes, I understand that maybe he has some mess ups here or there, but rarely can you have a center back that can just plug and play like that with Kyle Hebert. And I would not be surprised if that's something that another team would be looking for. Or do they want to take a chance on a Nilsson or a Baumgartel? But for me, Jake, I'm throwing Kyle Hebert in my 12 that I'd be protecting as well for that reason.
I like that. And he's on good value too. His contract is not hurting us very much. We're getting great value. There's probably not many backup center backs that are called into national team camps. So, we have a good situation there. So I think Baumgartel kind of fills that depth. Do I think he's the answer? No. I do think we'll have to probably splash for a really high level quality center back at some point here in the next 1 to 2 years, depending on how this pans out. But final topic for us, Justin, big topic, leaving for the end, is Olaf Melberg has been announced as the new permanent head coach for us, at least permanent until it's not. But he's been given some term on his deal. I believe I saw 5 years was the contract. And I was a little bit thrown off on this one. He's coming over from Scandinavia, where we've tried to find some value before, and I'm optimistic that they found a good fit for them. But in terms of his coaching career, it's not as impressive as his playing career. I mean, the guy's played at Aston Villa, he's played at Juve, he's played at some really impressive clubs over his time as a player. But as a manager, he hasn't really been in the position that long, and he's really only coached, mostly in Scandinavia. But when he has, he's done relatively well. I mean, he's coached one side, up 2 consecutive promotions, which I don't care where you're playing. That's difficult wherever you're going to be. And he's a guy that seems to stretch the boundaries of budget and really suck up any sort of value he can possibly do, and do well with younger players as well. So you hear a lot of things like, oh, I can totally see how Lutz would be really interested in a guy like this. And he's young, he's 47, seems impressionable. He seems like more of a piece of our coaching staff or a piece of our front office than like this big marquee hire you go out and get. What was your thoughts, Justin?
I was extremely surprised by this. I think we talked about it, that we weren't expecting a big splash, and I'm happy that we didn't go with the USL route with the dude from Louisville. I was kind of intrigued if we were going to pick up the coach from Philadelphia Union, but knowing Lutz, this has been something that's been in the works, obviously, ever since we kind of let go of Carnell, and probably even before that he's been over there kind of just in case we needed a backup or anything like that, who we're going to pull in. And the good news is we're not losing Hackworth, at least not yet. So he'll be staying on as technical director or sporting director or technical director as well. So this is a guy that, like, it's not like we're just going to have Olaf come in and just be, oh, take the reins, it's all yours. I think it's going to be something where Hack will kind of feed him into this. And I think it's a good time right now for them to do this. It's a newer team. We'll see what kind of style of play he's going to have. It's obviously, like you said, it's a short coaching career so far. But I mean, in my opinion, let's roll the dice and let's see what we got.
I mean, the only 2 things I mentioned too is they've mentioned that, he's got a good reputation. Like, I think his playing career, precedes him. He's been considered for top jobs. Think about the Swedish national team. They've been good. And he was considered for that role in this past cycle. He's also been known to be adaptable with teams and be able to throw a plan B, a plan C out there, things that we've been yearning to see from a coach. So I am optimistic, but cautiously so. I'm going to give him, the time he needs. I think the team will definitely give him some good leash. At least the staff will give him some good leash in making sure that he gets to make his impression on this team. But he's inheriting a pretty good squad that's in a good window in terms of age and performance. So it's a lot of good things rolling in this direction, and I'm optimistic about it. I just feel like I want to see what this team looks like under his identity. He'll get a full preseason with them, which is always good to have that amount of time. But he's inheriting a pretty stable situation, given John Hackworth and how he left the team and all the reinforcements that Lutz brought in the window for summer.
And absolutely, and you already mentioned it earlier, but just to reiterate, for this expansion draft, we can only lose one guy. So I know it is a little scary. It's like, oh, are we? And that's if they even pick one of ours. So if you think about the percentage of this, Jake, it's like what? There's 29 teams already in the league. Only 5 teams can lose a guy, and you can only lose one guy per team. So there's a good chance we won't lose anybody. But Jake, give me your hot take just real quick on, like, who are your bottom 4 or 5 that you're retaining? I think we already agreed: Berkey, Hartel, Toyshirt, Leuven, Durkin, Kessler, Toland. Then my next group is Klaus, Simon Betcher, Celio, Hebert, and this is the one that I'll probably get some flack for, but I'm going with Indy. I think this is a guy right now, when you're talking about it, he's 23 years old. We picked him up in the expansion draft. I understand that teams might not want him, but I think he's a locker room guy, and we need a locker room guy right now. I know Celio's coming back, but he's a guy that he's also kind of a plug and play for me. So if you look at that, I would be taking Indy over Alm, Ostrak, and Thor, who are also kind of in that same position. I feel like it's a little saturated there. Yes, I'm leaving Nilsson out. I think just with his contract size, and he has not proven to be staying healthy, I don't think San Diego is going to pick him up. JGR, yes, I understand it was a bigger splash for us, but also hasn't proven anything for us. So if you're San Diego, you're really taking a chance on that. But I think the one first man out is Giannis Horn. That scares me a little bit because I don't want to restart from left back. But Indy is probably my guy where I could definitely see them not protecting him, but I would appreciate if they do.
I would like them to, I think, protect Horn, because I think what I saw was enough to say that we're good for now in the left back spot. And I think he can also shift into center back if needed as well. So he's got that dual kind of threat with him. The other hotter take, you asked for one, is I could see them maybe getting a little creative in the Klaus situation. I am not anti-Klaus at all. And I hope that we come back in 2025 and the pieces around him link up with him perfectly, and he is the bear we always thought he would be. But I also could see a world where, has he been that impressive for us? It's been 2 years. I know there's been some injuries in there as well. Would a team take a flyer on Klaus and say, hey, I mean, we've seen him provide for expansion teams before. Could we see that, on our expansion team? And for us, it'd be shifting on that contract and that the wages that he's on and opening up a DP spot. So, I would want to see reinforcement as well. Like I don't want to hand the reins to Simon Betcher and say, it's all yours this season, buddy. Go ahead. And I think he would do well. But if we're going to see Klaus go, I would want to see reinforcement come in the door right after he leaves. And I think they would have a plan if that did happen. But I could maybe see Klaus being on the unprotected list.
I think they're going to end up protecting him. It's a $1.23 million year, $1.2 million deal per year right now for him. And I do think that we saw some kind of highlights in those last couple of games with the reinforcements and the way that I think that a lot of people have talked about that he creates a space that then we can fill in for Betcher and Toyshirt and Hartel to really show what they can do. So I would like to give him a little bit more time with that group. I'm not saying he's our main guy and he has to be our main guy going forward, because I agree. I think we've been hard on him just in a sense of like not being the goal scorer for us. But I would like to give him a little bit more time, because if we lose Klaus, I don't feel as confident going into next year. It's like, then you're like, all right, I guess you are just saying Simon Betcher's our guy. So I think we hold on to him, but it's going to be interesting. The list of players that we are protecting is coming out the day before. So San Diego only has 24 hours. So that will be coming out Tuesday, December 10th. And then the expansion draft is on Wednesday, December 11th. If I remember correctly, Jake, I don't even remember. I think it's like mid-afternoon. So I think it'll be done before Hope for the Holidays.
Yeah, I think you're right. I remember we were invited to the party. Yeah, it was a blast. So it'll be exciting. It's always fun to see a new team come in, even out the West now with a full 14 teams. And San Diego, I mean, that might need to be an away journey very soon here. But yeah, a lot of fun stuff coming to the pipeline. New coach, new signings, expansion draft, and so much more to be announced here soon. I'm sure the schedule will be dropped here relatively soon as well. But a lot to look forward to for you all City fans, and a lot to look forward to for Hope of the Holidays. So make sure, if you didn't catch that part of the episode, go listen to the very beginning here and check us out on social media. We're blasting out flyers and highlights and promotional videos and materials for you all. It's going to be a freaking blast. And again, anything you all can do, we appreciate. If you like what we've been doing this year or last year, or you just appreciate us at all, or you just want to make a difference and make a positive impact this time in the holiday season and be grateful for what you've been given and give back to someone else that may not be as fortunate, or help change someone's life. Being a fund, contributor or funding any sort of cause is obviously important, but funding this cause is important to us. So thank you all in advance for that and consideration. But Justin, Thanksgiving's over. We're on the march to the holidays now. Hope for the holidays for us, and then Christmas time and all the holidays that ensue. It's going to be a blast of a ride into it, and we'll be following along, probably hitting you all at least with 1 or 2 more shows before Christmas rolls around here. But hopefully you all enjoyed a little season preview review for 2024. I'm excited to turn the page, man, and go to 2025 mode.
I'm extremely excited, and I want to say thank you. Very thankful for all the listeners. This has been an awesome ride these past 3 years. Jake and I did this for a full year before the City team actually got hit the field and kind of hit the ground running. But now we hit the sophomore slump. Let's see what we got for, what is that, junior year? Do they even call it that as our third year? Man. We're going to be back. So I'm excited and thankful. Thank everybody for sticking along with us. It's been an awesome ride so far.
Well, thanks all for tuning in, and we'll catch you here soon. Ball watching out. All for City.
All for City.